I'm Corrie Jackson, RBC's Senior Art Curator. I have the pleasure of overseeing the management and growth of the RBC collection, and I'm here to speak about something we all do all the time, managing relationships. In my own role, collecting on behalf of a financial institution, I have the pleasure of working regularly with artists, galleries, curators, and collectors, and so much of how I come to learn about new artwork is based on these relationships. It's really an ecosystem. For artists, having a network of peers is an important part of building stability for yourself and for your practice. A core network of artists, curators, and arts workers can be an anchor for you. But in terms of outward professional growth, collectors and dealers can play a really important role in bringing your work to new audiences. That means understanding where you're at in your career, and that will help you understand your work in relation to dealers and collectors. For many, their first interaction with a dealer might be at a grad school, or it might have been meeting the dealer of a peer or an artist who you respect. Many galleries grow and consider new artists by also seeing who the existing artists they work with are looking at and being influenced by. There's kind of an organic, natural relationship there. And if you want to get to know a dealer or are interested in representation, I'd recommend firstly just going to the openings, be visible, talk to the artists that are already represented by that gallery, and start building an adjacent network. Pursuing and maintaining a relationship is really rooted in strong, clear, and honest communication. Making sure that there's clarity to everything you put into the world is really important. If you're working with a gallery, monthly check-ins with a gallerist can help keep lines of communication open, but know that every gallery will have its own pace and be working through different things at different times. So be patient, but also assert yourself if there's a question that you have. It can take a time to settle in, and you need to communicate what you need from them. Like all relationships, it's a two-way street. A good gallerist will be focused not just on selling works, but also, and just as importantly, helping you find the relationships that will allow you to grow and develop professionally in the long term. This could be relationships with writers, curators, fabricators, consultants. They're all a big part of that ecosystem that'll support you in the longevity of your career. They'll also help you set up a baseline for the values of your work. This is incredibly important. An artwork's value is also predicated on acquisitions and having a market for your work. The gallerist completes this exercise by introducing your work to collectors. And finding this balance of an artwork's value versus demand is a key element of what a gallerist will bring to your practice. They establish a market for your work. We know there's not an exact science to pricing a piece, but a skilled and experienced gallerist will establish values based on a wide array of information, including elements like your past sales, public exhibitions, critical interest, such as published articles or interviews, as well as the time and material cost of fabrication. In all of this, trust and communication from both of you are central to establishing a successful market for your work. It's important for there to be trust with your gallerist to speak on your behalf with sincerity and knowledge. Their role isn't just to sell your work, but also to help give your ideas context and a place to be accessed, shared, and conversed over. This leads to gallery overhead costs, things like spaces, insurance, art fair costs, shipping, storage fees, etc. All these rather hidden costs are part of what create a space and context for the work. Now, it's important to note that not every artist is necessarily going to be interested in a commercial practice. Maybe you're more interested in site-specific installations or working within museum settings exclusively. But understanding the ecology of the art economy is still really important. If you're working with a gallerist, expect that about half, but not more, of the commercial sale of your work will be going to the gallerist to take on all those costs. Make sure that you both also discuss things like costs for framing, return shipments, and how long a gallery is going to be holding the works for you. Some galleries will have contracts and others won't. All relationships are best if they're anchored in trust, and a contract can be a way of ensuring transparency. If there isn't a contract, then make sure that you've still discussed the details and logistics and clearly have defined outlines and expectations. If you aren't happy with what you see and hear, then maybe they're not the right partner for you. Or if you choose to work independently, especially if you feel confident in your ability to market and sell your work and develop audiences with curators and arts professionals and collectors, then great. Many artists are interested in going this route, if working with a gallery isn't ideal for you. That said, it can also take time away from the studio, making, and research. Know that intermediaries such as art consultants or interior designers that might buy your work through the studio might still ask for a percentage of a sale to help them facilitate. Your gallerist will also grow with you as you get more exhibition opportunities, particularly with public institutions. Your prices can also increase as your audience and public visibility also increase. You might have opportunities to work with galleries in different cities or countries, and if this is the case, that's amazing, but always try and be communicative and transparent with any existing gallery representatives. Your success is a positive reflection on their work too. Nothing is created in a bubble. That said, know these moments will ebb and flow. You might be in daily conversation leading up to an exhibition with a gallerist, but then throughout the year, they'll also be doing this for other artists, so make sure you're setting your expectations accordingly. Also, not all dealers will necessarily want to show you work forever, or you might change in a new direction, one that requires a different gallerist with a different way of talking about your work. Change isn't a bad thing, but always remember that trust is key to a lasting and successful artist-gallerist relationship. A relationship with a collector, on the other hand, can be very different from a gallerist. A working relationship with a gallerist is rooted in mutual understanding and benefit. An artist-collector relationship, in a lot of ways, is no different. Be realistic and clear about what's expected in the exchange. A collector is a client, but there can be many ways that relationship can grow. A collector will come to your work with their own background, perspectives, and understanding, and that's what's going to lead them through a piece. It's good to remember that just because a collector resonates with one work might not mean that there is a resounding interest in your holistic approach. Don't take this personally. Some individuals who work with collections or collect on behalf of a collection, foundation, or a museum may also not just be considering their own interests, but the interests of their broader audience. A museum curator might also be collecting work that has a relationship to an existing collection or an exhibition. Consider the sale of your works as a way to develop and share your work with new audiences. Not all collectors will necessarily have a background or a specific area of interest, but some will. I'll also say there's not a small amount of debate on what defines a collector versus someone just acquiring an artwork. Ultimately, I root this difference down to the work and interest that a collector does before and after, to understand the artist's intents, the context, and the process. Having an up-to-date CV, website, and artist statement are really helpful here, as they'll likely be the first place anyone will go to learn more about your practice. Working in the arts can often feel like a network of dispersed areas, and at times commercial aspects of participating in this ecosystem can feel hard to access. Understanding the important role that galleries and collectors play as part of this ecosystem is a really important first step.